Hi, everybody. Welcome back to HSP TV. I am your host, Barbara, and today I'm joined by the beautiful Heidi. And we are going to be talking today about how to reclaim your self worth by using tarot and astrology. And I've been looking forward to this because I am dabbling in tarot. I need to look up every single card to know what it means and then sort of have to figure out, usually with the use of internet, what it sort of can mean. But it has my interest. So I would love to find out how it can tell me more or how I can reclaim my self-worth with it. So thank you so much, Heidi, for being here today and coming to talk to me about it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be a lot of fun. A lot of
Yes.
fun.
Yes, we've already been having a lot of fun, so you should probably can tell by how we're working. And yes, this is going to definitely be fun. So, well, maybe is too direct, but we Dutch are very direct. So let's start with the burning question.
Yep.
How does one reclaim their self-worth with tarot? Let's
through
start.
a lot of hard work. But um we're talking about reclaiming yourself through the tarot is really using the cards as a mirror to what's going on internally, and it uses it as a way to kind of self-reflect and look at yourself in probably the most objective way you could get.
Hmm.
As you know, when we go through an experience, when we walk through hard times, when we walk through good times, we have a very clear understanding of what our truth is. This happened this way, and that's my truth, and that's what I'm living in, which is great. But that also can get skewed by other people if you've been through any sort of trauma, if you grew up maybe in a toxic environment, if you had friendships, relationships that where it started to wear away at your own confidence, self-esteem, self-worth, you start to see yourself in a different light. And what tarot does is it actually reflects to you honestly
Hmm.
what is going on with you. And sometimes it's not always gonna show you your own perspective. It may show you another perspective that you've never thought about, but
Hmm.
it always has a way of showing you exactly what you need.
Yeah, I love that because it basically it uses your intuition sort of to draw cards, but there
Yep.
are different ways of working with tarot. So do you then use a one card or a three card, or do you do something like the Celtic cross?
For me, it's going to depend on the situation that I'm reading in. For me, I will draw a daily one card. And usually the question I ask with that is, how can I show up for me today? And that is such an important question. Even if you don't use tarot, how can
Mhm.
I show up for me today is such an amazing way to start because it
Yes.
allows you to see where you can start working on yourself, where you can start saying, this is where I need to start putting boundaries in, where I need to start working on some self acceptance. And then having the cards do there for you helps your intuition kind of pop off, right? That's why I love them. They are a tool to really get into your intuition and help it rise, because sometimes we live in a busy, noisy world.
Yes.
We have so many voices going on about who's telling me this deadline's due and I have to get that done and take the kids here or walk the dog, that we don't always have time to sit down and really take that time to get into it, meditate. So using
Mhm.
this as a tool to just really tap in, listen to your heart is such a phenomenal way
Yes.
to start building that value and that intuitive muscle to really see you in a new light.
If I love this, but if I'm being honest, because I am still not intimately familiar with the cards, I
Yep.
don't know how to interpret them. So I have been doing it with oracle cards
Yep.
because they usually have a message that is really in your face and you immediately know what it means, and then
Mhm.
it's easier to work with. So when, for instance, you do a one card and you ask, how can I show up for myself today? And I draw the Queen of Cups. How do I
Yep.
then interpret the meaning?
That is something that I would say, if this is especially something that you're new to, there's so much tarot information out there that you can get really lost in the I'm going to look it up, I'm going to go to the book, I'm going to go to this. I've been studying tarot for about 20 years now, so I have a very solid foundation knowledge of it.
Yeah.
The best thing I will say is similar to an oracle is just let your intuition be guided to one thing on that card. So,
Mm.
for example, let's say we use this guy because he's a good one. We're going to use a minor arcana because sometimes they're a little harder to use. The major arcana follows the hero's journey, so it's a little easier. But if I were to pull a card like this, where it's the
Mm.
Seven of Pentacles, I might be drawn to how he looks and how
Mhm.
pensive he looks. And then for me, I'm like, well, he's looking a little pensive. Maybe the best way I can show up for myself today is by taking an extra thought, holding back on a few things. Maybe it's the pentacle on the ground, the one that fell off. And then
Mhm.
we're like, okay, maybe I'm juggling too much. So when you're starting to read tarot and using it in this way, the best thing you can do is really focus in on one symbol on the card and make just a connection with that.
I love that because indeed I've always been focused on, oh, it's the Seven of Pentacles. What does the Seven of Pentacles mean? And then you look up the Seven of Pentacles and then you get a description and then you sort of need to interpret it for what can it then mean in relationship to my question. And that can be difficult and it can be time consuming and it can even be something that stops people from continuing with their journey because
Yeah.
it's either too difficult or too confusing or something like that. But indeed, if you use imagery and you just look at the picture and what in
Yeah.
the picture captures my attention, what draws my eye, and what could that then mean in relationship to my question?
Yeah. And that's to me, that's the basis of tarot. You can read all there is to know about tarot. You can know numerology because there's Seven of Pentacles, right? Eight of Swords, and bring that into it. You can study deep, deep imagery in it, but it comes down to these are art on cards that are just giving a way for our intuition to express ourselves. And there's a meaning that is unlocked for us. And then through the rest of the day, maybe you just make note of, hey, when that comes up. And I very specifically remember a time where it was the Eight of Wands, and that's a hard one to read because it's just eight wands coming at like in an angle down the card. And so there's no people on it, there's no faces, and I was really trying hard to connect with this. And so I was like, I don't know what this means. And all of a sudden I pulled that card that day and I was like, I'm not going to ask a question. I'm just going to let it sit on my desk while I work and see what happens. And then all of a sudden through that day, I got hit after email, people messages coming in, information coming in of stuff that I wanted to know. And so there is a lived experience of the card that now I have that foundational knowledge. So it's not even necessarily always being, I have to study this and I have to look up all the meanings. Sometimes it's just allowing life to happen and making that connection to going, this is what the image is. Now I have my understanding of it.
Yes, I love it. It's indeed not what does it mean according to other people, but what does it mean to me?
Yeah.
Love the example that you gave with the guy, the Seven of Pentacles, and that is looking down. So it could indeed be that you think, oh, maybe I need to think more before I act.
Yeah. Right? So it's something very small and very simple that you don't have to like, you don't have to sit there and go into, let's look up all of these cards and all of these meanings and then get lost. It's very much, how is it meaning to me? And what does that face mean to me? What does the symbol mean to me? How does it feel?
Hmm.
And from there, you start building not just knowledge of the cards, but you're building knowledge of yourself because you're realizing all these symbols connect to you in a certain way. And you start realizing that when this comes up, this is what's happening in my life. This is the story that I feel is inside of me right now. This is the story that's playing out. And then you start to realize this is the power that I have and that I am in. So it's kind of like a process of building into it.
Yes, I love that. I love that very much, actually. That opens me up also to use the imagination more, the creative interpretation of things instead of the factual interpretation of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Because I read for clients, but each reading that I read for clients is very, very personal, and none of the cards will come up the same way. Very rarely do they show up
Mm,
the same way. Um, and even when I read for myself, it's something different when it means to me versus when I'm reading for another person.
mhm. Yeah, I've been following this dude on YouTube that does weekly spreads per zodiac. And
Mhm.
he's also explaining elements and symbols on the cards, and he's combining it with oracle cards. And it also is a great way for me to get into it, to at least well, stay connected to it and to go deeper in it. How do you then use it to get more clear on your true essence?
You're using it when you're using it to get more clear on your true essence. I would start with the major arcana. Those cards are the Fool's Journey, similar to the Hero's Journey, where they're walking through these big life events, right? The Chariot is your willpower and your drive. You have big symbols of the devil being feeling restricted and holding back. And it's easier to start with those bigger themes because it's easier for us to know those and see those in our lives, and then work your way down to the minor arcana and work on those symbols. And slowly you start to build a relationship with these cards, which is building a relationship with yourself because it's all a reflection of your internal. So you start to see and realize things about yourself. Um, and then you start to put the pieces together that, okay, so maybe I've been pulling, we'll go back to the Seven of Pentacles. Maybe I've been pulling the Seven of Pentacles regularly. Maybe it's not always 5 days in a row, but maybe it's like I've pulled it twice in a row and then something else, and then now it's coming up 3 times in a row. What does that mean about the cycle that I'm in? And it allows you to ask those questions to yourself and goes, okay, if this means that I'm in a cycle of maybe being patient, of slowing down, of waiting for things you know, to propagate for me, how can I then start slowing down? And then it allows you another layer to like go, okay, so now I've realized this cycle that I'm in. So how can I take it to the next layer and achieve these results?
I love that. Yes, it's indeed also using a lot of your intuition, right? Feeling into it, not forcing
Yeah.
it in a certain direction or forcing it to mean something, but more opening up to allow something to come in, an insight or a symbol, a smell, something that takes you further into your discovery.
Yeah. And by doing it that way, rather than forcing a result, and trust me, there are people that will still try and force results because they're like, I don't like that. Draw another card.
Yes. Like the
It's
death
more,
card or the hangman are usually cards that people don't like and want another
yeah.
one for. Yeah.
They're like, no, death, go away, choose another one. But by being open to what comes through, you start to learn too where your uncomfortabilities is. So if you're pulling the death card and you're like, you have that opportunity to say, why is the imagery on this card making me tighten up? Where is this making me uncomfortable? And why
Mhm.
is this card so potent? What does it mean to me?
Yes. And especially when you're doing card pulls for yourself and then you pull it 3 days in a row, then you think, what are you trying to tell me, death? Right? Do I need to die? And so I dove into the death card actually because it's not about physically dying, right? It can also mean
No,
the end of a cycle or the beginning of something new. So it's not necessarily a negative card.
no, no, none of them are. And that's what I love about the tarot is because there's negative and positives depending on how you spin the card, what comes out, what you're asking about. If we're using death as the example, it doesn't, like you said, doesn't mean all death is physical. It doesn't mean you're going to die tomorrow, but it means there's something that's closing off. That's something that's ending for you. A lot of modern tarot readers like to put the spin on it that death is just transformation because death and rebirth. Personally, I love the idea that death is death. Something is being let go of, something we need to put to
Something
rest.
is finishing, ending, stopping.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's not always a bad thing. Maybe
No.
you've had a maybe you've been to work and it's been a really, really stressful with work because you've been under a project, or maybe you don't have a really good boss, and you could pull the death card and you suddenly find out, oh, we're at the end of this project. Well, then you're like, oh, that's not so bad. That means that I can take relief out. And if we're looking at it as an internal process, it means that there's something in you that you're carrying that you don't have to carry anymore.
No, if you've been doing a lot of self work and you've been healing a lot within yourself, then it can just signify the end of the healing transformation journey that you started and that
Yeah.
you're finally ready to release it permanently,
Yeah.
which is
And
actually really positive.
yeah. And that's why there's temperance that comes right after death, because temperance, you have the Archangel Michael on the card. There's your rebirth.
Hmm.
There's your transformation into something new. There's the alchemy that the death process takes you through. But you
Yeah.
have to sit in that uncomfortable space of letting go of grief before you can move forward. And it's not a comfortable space, but the
No.
cards allow you, they give you permission to have that space for yourself to say, this is what I'm working through. I'm allowed to be in it.
Hmm. And the most, I think the most well-known tarot deck is the Rider Waite, but
Yeah.
it has also very um, limiting visuals, I think. So, but there are lots of other decks where you still
Hmm.
have the Seven of Wands or the Ace of Pentacles or whatever, but that might have imagery that speaks more to your imagination, that helps you
Yeah.
tap into the imaginative side of yourself. So you don't have to have a tarot deck that looks like every other tarot deck that you've ever seen. If you see one, or if you want one that really speaks to you, then I think it's also really great to look at the different types of tarot
Yeah.
decks that there are, and especially the imagery, and then choose one that you feel drawn to, connected to.
100%. That is, if you guys are if anybody out there is getting into tarot and they're like, what do I get? I will always recommend a Rider Waite deck because it is the most popular, it's the most studied, it's going to have the most literature on it. But ultimately, go and find what you connect with, and go on. And then my favorite thing, go on YouTube, look up unboxing of this deck and look at the cards, see if you connect with them, see if they tell you a story. This deck here is, this is my Rider Waite Trippin Weight. So it is Rider, so you can see it's very Rider Waite coded, but it's like, I'm a little hippie, so it's a
It's still
little hippie
different. Yeah,
deck.
it's more visual.
Yeah, but my favorite deck that I don't use for clients or anybody, it's my personal, my soul deck, is called the Forest of Enchantment, and it's very much fairy tale coded, where it's like very, looks like old um paintings from old fairy tale books. And because of my connection to stories, to fairy tales, to the fae, that speaks to me in a very direct, certain way that it doesn't speak to anybody else on. So that's like
Yes.
my personal tech.
Yes.
um but it's all, again, you have to be able to connect to it, and then interpreting it is really, what does it mean to you?
Hmm. Yes, yes, I totally get that. I love that you're saying that. So the dude that I'm following on YouTube, he has two decks when he does it. So he has one that has big cards that are very clear, and he puts them in four rows of three. And then when he starts talking about it, he has a smaller deck that he pulls, and then he pulls a second card on top of the first card. But that has very different imagery, and then he combines the two into something that I think, oh, this is really amazing. I've never seen that before. But the more I follow people, the more I have readings with people, the more that I'm now also discovering different decks, is the more
Yeah.
that I see that it's also really personal.
It is, and that's why I think, that's why I keep coming back to tarot. I have oracle decks as well that I use. Oracle, I find, and it's just the way I personally read, is that I like oracle as like, this is the overarching theme. So I'll maybe draw
Mm.
one oracle card. I won't do a
Yes.
full reading with an oracle card because I'm like, this is kind of the overarching theme. If I'm going to describe it as the menu, this is the theme of the menu. We are having a Christmas dinner.
Yeah. Or
And then,
Italian or Greek or something.
yeah, and then um the tarot cards was the individual dishes. And so that lays out the flavors and what I'm going to be eating, as it were. So that's how
Yes.
I look at those two.
I agree with you. So I use the oracle cards when I say, "Oh, okay, universe, what's your message to me today?" And then I pull one oracle card and it has a message, and I think, oh, that's nice. That's indeed how I use the oracle decks and the tarot. I usually do either a three spread or is it called the Celtic cross?
Yep, there's the big Celtic cross that's like
Right?
10 cards.
Yeah, with the 10
Yeah.
cards. Yes. So that takes me forever because and so I really need to have the time to do that one because I have to look up everything and then especially in the position where it's in and then interpret it and stuff. But I do find that it gives me clarity when I need it. It also gives me hope. It gives me support. It gives me
Yep.
insights into certain things. And I love how spot on it feels every single time.
Yep. I I I love, and that's why I like tarot's my baby. That's never gonna go away. I've been reading it since I was 16. Because it is. I'm doing even a big spread. Like I don't use the Celtic cross a whole lot. I'm a tableau style reader. So that means I lay out my number is 4. The guy you watch is 3. So 4 cards come out in a row and I read it like a book, end to end, and let this cards tell me the story of what's going on. Um but the Celtic cross is such a great spread for really getting clarity on a very specific subject.
Yes. I
That's
do
where
for
that's really,
specific
really
things.
great.
Yes.
And I love that one thing that I've noticed, and Oracle cards are getting better that I've noticed, but one big thing for me when it comes to tarot versus Oracle is that tarot will tell you, like Oracle feels very soft and very gentle and very loving, which is great. Tarot tells you how it is, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so it allows us to maybe face some things in ourselves that we're not maybe comfortable with, maybe things that we don't like about ourselves, maybe we don't talk to ourselves in the best way all the time, and tarot will be the first one to say, "You gotta stop that.
Yes,
You gotta
tarot
love on
always
yourself a
does
little
that,
more."
and Oracle, some Oracle decks do that, but it depends on the Oracle deck itself.
Yeah,
Mostly are just inspirational messages, and that's great, but there are a couple where you also need to draw them in a certain pattern and then interpret their meaning, and then it's sort of
yeah.
like tarot, but well, different images, of course, and different meaning, but it is also more explanatory or clarifying or something like that. But tarot always does that. Yes.
Yeah, and that's why I love it for like self-reclamation work, self-value worth, because there's things that you don't always see about yourself. Because
Yes.
it's hard. It's I mean, how we've grown up in a society where we've been taught to source our power to somebody else, to our parents, to
Mhm.
our bosses, to our mentors. And tarot allows you to then bring that power back to you. It allows you to say, hey, you know what you're really good at? You're really good at X. You're really good at being patient. But maybe you're not so good at being a student. Maybe you're not so great at being a student. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm really patient, but I'm not so great at being a student. How can I take the patience and allow it to leverage it into being a really good student? And then now you have a story of where how you can use a strength of yours to help boost up maybe something that's more of a challenge for you.
Yes. 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 Exactly. Oh, I've been loving this. And it's like I said, I've dabbled in it a little bit, but not anything heavy. And it's um yeah, oh I've shared how I've used it, so we don't have to talk about that again.
That's okay. I will talk shop with tarot all day, every day.
Exactly. So I love this way of looking at it because it fits so much better also with my personality. So most empaths and highly sensitive people, we are image thinkers. So imagery is very important. And I don't, while you were talking, I thought, well, why did it never occur to you to just look at the pictures? I didn't know. So
You
I
know
love
what?
that.
It doesn't occur to everybody because it's such a long-standing tradition. It has so much history to it. There is like, a few core decks with core imagery that all other decks are based off of, right? You have your Rider-Waite, you have your Thoth, you have your Marseille style decks. All decks are kind of based off of one of those. There's tons of books and literature to read. Our first instinct is outsource our power. What does the expert say?
Yes.
When really, if you're using tarot for yourself, you're the expert on yourself.
Yes.
So being able to bring that and say, what does this symbol mean to me? What
Yes.
does his face mean? There's a 7 of Wands. The guy is wearing two different shoes. And so that when that comes up, I always look at those two different shoes and I'm like, what are you standing in that's not yours? So it allows you to kind of explore these things that
Mhm.
are very, very deeply personal, but still in a way that you can hold space for yourself. And it's not so, it's confronting, but maybe not so confronting as, sitting there having somebody tell you directly to your face what your problem is.
Yeah. Not everybody receives that well.
No. And I think that's why the having a lived experience through the tarot is so important too.
Yeah.
Um, because people have been asking me for a few years to start teaching it, and I've just started teaching it this year with one small program to see how it went. And it's because I was spending these last couple of years living the cards and
Mhm.
really seeing what they meant, how they played out in my life, what does it mean to embody certain energies of these cards.
Mhm.
And that's another way you can really use this imagery is when you look at that 7 of Pentacles or, nope, magician. Here we go. What does it mean to embody and the energy of the magician? And so you can
Yeah.
start asking yourself that question, and then you step
Yeah.
into that energy and you start seeing, if I embody this, this is now how my life is changing. This is how I can start standing for myself. This is where my magic is. So these are all really powerful ways you can use the tarot.
Funny, the first thing I saw when you held up that card was the peace sign. So
That's
how can I
why
chill more?
that's why I love this deck, right? But a peace sign. So, what does a peace sign mean to you? How can I find more peace in my life? And
Yeah.
that's how you really start using it to come back to yourself because you make it
Yes.
really an intensely personal practice. And it doesn't have to be complicated and it doesn't have to be hard despite what's out there and people saying you need to have so much knowledge around the cards. No, you can just live with them with
Mhm.
yourself and
Yes.
use it to understand you and how you show up in the world.
Well, that's how I started with all of the things that I do, actually, where I just first started using it for myself. And the last couple of years, I've been really diving deep into human design and the gene
Mhm.
keys and discovering what they are sharing me about myself and really getting to know myself on a deep level, intimately healing and such. And now I finally reached the point where I am teaching in it. I'm starting a pilot program soon, and I think it takes a while to work with something, to really embody it, to feel into it before you are ready or feel ready to teach it.
I 100% agree. I know there are people that'll go and take a course and they'll like, well, I've learned all there is to know about tarot or gene keys or human design or astrology. Now I'm going to go and teach it. And I'm like, there's a part where there's the good teachers, the really good teachers will have that lived experience through it
Hmm.
because then it's in their system. It's intrinsically part
Yes,
of them. And I
yes.
think that's one of the reasons that I keep coming back to tarot. I've dabbled in things here and there, but tarot is because it's cards. For me, they are a tool of storytelling, and the story that they
Hmm.
tell is yours.
Yes. Yes, because if we look at astrology, yeah, we haven't spoken about astrology yet, but the first time someone showed me my card, I thought, no clue what I'm looking at.
Yeah, it looks like Greek.
Yes, it's a bunch of numbers, a bunch of symbols with a bunch of lines
Yep.
that mean absolutely nothing. And then they're talking about your fifth house, your sixth house, your 12th house, and I think, sure. And this is the planet Uranus, if you say so.
Yeah, if we're looking at astrology, the way I like to read astrology and natal charts is again, I'm looking for the story. It's those symbols relate to very specific archetypes, which is why I think tarot and astrology go so well hand in hand.
Yes.
These are all archetypes, all of them in here. Doesn't matter if it's a card like the Lovers, and we're talking about the archetype of choice, and we're talking about the archetype of duality. Um, or
Hmm.
it's the planet Mars, and we're talking about the archetype of Aries, which I know is also a zodiac sign, but we're talking Mars, the god Aries. What does it mean to be the god of war?
Hmm.
What does that look like? How does that show up in passion and drive? So it's taking symbols, translating them into archetypes, and how
Yes.
does that archetype show up for you in your life? How does it help form you? How does it help drive you? How does it help where is it showing you that you're holding yourself back in areas?
Yes, and I'm not making fun of astrology because it's really really valuable, and it's in part where human design and the gene keys are based on. And I think it's with everything. The first time I saw human design, I had no clue what I was looking at with the squares and the triangles and the numbers, and I thought, sure. And the same with the gene keys. Then you have circles with numbers in them with lines in between, and then you also think I have no clue what I'm looking at. And so when
Yeah.
you're new to something, you don't really know what you're looking at, but all of it points in the direction of a story, an explanation of a certain part of yourself.
100%. And I really love astrology for telling me the quality of time that I'm working with. And tarot is how do I work with myself through this? So that's how I use them in conjunction. So I'll use astrology as this is the energy that we are moving through collectively, that I'm in myself personally. How can I hold myself through it? What do I need to learn as I'm moving through this quality of time? That's where I bring in the tarot. Um, for example, we have Saturn just moved into Aries. So we're looking at the archetype of Aries again, the warrior, the champion. And Saturn, I study Hellenistic astrology, which is the way ancient Greeks have read it. So I don't use a whole lot of outer planets. Saturn was death at one point and its maturity and growth. So now we're looking at archetypes of what does it mean for somebody who's a warrior, who is a champion, who has tremendous ambition. What does it mean for that person to now mature? And then as you put it into a house, it's an area of life. For me, that's my 10th house. So that is your house of career. So now I'm looking at where am I maturing my drive and my focus and my energy in my career. So that's how it tells me the quality of time. And so if you work with astrology in that way, you can get really, really good at okay, this is how I can capitalize on using what my own cycles are. And then you can start going, okay, now I'm moving in flow with the universe because now I know what my cycles are. I know what the energy is. I know how to capitalize on it and use it.
Yes, I love that. They are all of them are tools that allow you to look beyond the thing that society has taught us, look beyond the things that our parents have taught us, that our family has taught us, to
Yeah.
look at the things that have influenced us from the moment that we are born, that school does not teach us, but that does explain lots of the things that are going on. So for me, when well, one of the things I discovered through astrology, there I have a yacht in my chart, and before I never heard about it, I had no clue what it meant, and then she explained it to me, and I thought, oh, yay me! I'm basically the designated shit shoveler of both my mother's family and my father's family. Woohoo! That's what it comes down to in layman terms. And I've
Yeah.
always wondered because I did a lot of family constellations, healed a lot in my mother's family line, also a shit ton in my father's family line. And this sort of confirmed why that was necessary. And I thought, yeah, makes sense.
That's why I love astrology because I go and a lot of times I find for even for myself that I'll start thinking of something and then I'll go look at the chart and what's going on in the planets and I'm like, "Oh, I'm about this is coming in," and I'm like, "I'm about a day early." Okay, but that even being a day early, things don't play out necessarily time for time exactly on the
Oh,
day of. Um but it gives me that understanding of I'm really connected to something greater than myself.
yes.
Nothing makes me feel more connected to that, to like the greater and grand scheme of things than astrology because I'm like, I'm right on time. And that's what I love it for. Because a lot of times we also feel like we're so behind
Yes.
in life, in
Or that
business,
we're failing.
yeah, I'm this age, I should have this by now, I should have the house and the white picket fence and the husband and the kids and the job and the this and why am I late? And you go back and you look at your chart and you go, "Holy crap, I'm right on time. I'm exactly where I need to be right
Yes.
now."
Yes.
And it's really beautiful reminder.
Yes, for sure. That's the biggest things that human design and the gene keys have brought me. Understanding about myself, a deep understanding about myself, but also a deep understanding about my life up until now. Why my life was the way it is, why certain things happened, or why certain things kept happening over and over again, the purpose of it, and also in the grand scheme of things, I am right where I need to be, and everything's happening right on time, and I'm perfect.
Yeah. And if you have, like, if you're working with a great astrologer, you won't ever feel bad about any of your astrology. Right now, astrology is really, really popular, especially in social media. You get all these
Mhm.
memes that are like, oh, if you're this sign, then you're like this. And they show some signs in some very horrendous ways. And it breaks my heart because I'm like, those are people who walk with these signs, who walk with this archetypal energy, and you're making them feel bad for it.
Yeah.
Like, I just did a whole post on Gemini because everybody's like, "Oh, Gemini, the twins, they're two-faced." And I'm like, "That's not Gemini. Gemini's not two-faced. It's they're diverse. They don't think in black and white and binary. They can make bridges between thoughts that you and I could never like put piece together certain things, but that is their like superpower is building
Mhm.
these bridges. And that's really what when I do astrology, what I want to come down to is I want people to understand yes, there's some challenges with Gemini being a little chaotic, for example, and a little all over the place, of course, but it doesn't mean that they're a bad sign. It means that maybe their brain works slightly differently and they
Yes.
piece things together slightly differently.
Yes. Yes, I've been loving our talk because in the end it doesn't really matter what tool you use. In the end, it is that you start looking on the inside, that you start looking at your design, your internal, your planetary alignment, the way they were when you were born, your intuition, your things that come from within you instead of constantly looking outside of yourself for all of your answers. Your answers are within you, and these tools are sort of like a gateway that help you
Yeah.
to understand more about yourself, more about your journey, more about your experiences, more about your possible future.
Yeah. And it's about deeply connecting with yourself and realizing that there don't have power or control over you. The planets don't have power or control over you, and your cards definitely don't have power or control over you, but
Oh,
they're a mirror that can reflect to you things you may not have thought of or seen in yourself before.
yes, a mirror or sometimes a guide, sometimes inspiration. They can serve multiple functions. And
Yeah.
that's also what I love about them. They're not for one specific goal.
No. No, you can come to I would say come to them with almost anything, and the reason I say almost is there are certain things that you're not gonna be able to get from.
No,
Right?
no.
There's just certain things like lottery numbers, the one thing I as
Not
a reader,
fortune
the
telling, no.
fortune telling. When is my husband gonna come in? I
I
could do a
wish
whole
that could tell
yeah.
you that, but no.
I wish I could do a whole episode on like this is the wrong thing to ask.
Yeah.
But they're tools for really just connecting back deeply to yourself, to your intuition, and allowing you to realize what a powerful being you are in your own life.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Oh, I love it. I think in the beginning you told me that you would also love to draw a
Yeah,
card for the
I
audience,
could draw
right?
a card. I have all of my cards right here. I have like 7 decks within my reach at all times.
Perfect.
So I'll do a little card for the collective here and see what we get. It's one of the ones that you're like, people are afraid of it. Of course. It's the Hanged Man.
The Hanged Man.
But I actually really love that we pulled the Hanged Man because this isn't a card of, oh my God, I'm going to hang and die. If you actually look, he's just hanging upside down by his
Yeah,
foot.
but he
He's
has
not actually
butterfly
like,
wings and a
yeah,
rainbow swirl.
yeah. This is a card for me whenever I see this one, especially in this. It's just like, he's chilling out, happy where he is right now because it's about being in a mode of integration. And especially since we just had this super powerful talk about what it means to come home to yourself, how to come home to yourself using these tools. This is an amazing card to come out because it's now walk away with this talk in your heart, let it sit in your body, let it gestate for a little bit around how you can maybe use some of your tools differently, whether it's tarot or oracle or astrology or jinkies or human design, whatever your spiritual tool is. How can you use it to allow yourself to realize your own worth and your own power, and let these lessons integrate into you about how powerful you are as a person in your own life and how you can take charge of it.
Hmm. I love that. It's a beautiful card. And I love your deck actually because it's very bright and colorful. I love bright
I
and colorful.
I love this yeah, I love this deck, and it doesn't show up well on camera, but this is the stars edition, so it actually has holographic stars on it.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know
you
if you
cannot
can.
see those.
No,
No.
I didn't think you could see it. I didn't think the camera picks it up as well. But it has holographic stars on it. This is for
Oh,
anybody who loves this deck.
nice.
It's the Trip and Wait Stars edition.
Ah, tripping. I
Yeah,
like that.
I'm a little a bit of a hippie, so it's my
Yeah,
hippie
that
deck.
hence the peace sign.
Yeah, hence the peace signs for the pentacles. And there's people in there with like bell bottoms and like
Yeah,
this guy. Well, he's got the
I
butterfly
always said
wings.
I'm born in the wrong era as well. I would also
Oh, me
thrive
too.
in
I'm
the
like,
hippie time.
I should have been born in the 60s.
Yes,
Maybe I was in a past life. I don't do past life stuff. I should find somebody who does.
yes. I also don't know, but I think I would fit in there really well. Get it? Yes. Oh, I've been loving our talk, Heidi. Thank you so much for being here and being your wonderful self. And if you are watching and listening and you followed us so far, then we would love to hear what is your biggest insight of what we talked about today, or maybe you have a specific question. We would love to hear that as well. Leave a comment below this video. I can also imagine that you might think, well, I want to do a reading with Heidi. So where can people find you, Heidi? How can they connect with you?
You can connect with me on Instagram. My handle is at Northern Starlight Tarot, all one word. And you'll see a fun mix of tarot, astrology, and lots of me running around with a sword because I'm a fantasy babe. So I've been reading Lord of the Rings since I was like 9 years old. So there's lots of that too.
I love that. I will make sure that the link is included in the show notes below this video. The links to contact me will also be there. So if you want to talk with me, then that is also possible. The link to do so will also be in the description below. So for today, I think it's a thank you, a big, big,
Oh.
big thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope that your journey with tarot now is going to be made a little bit easier.
It will definitely be impacted, yes, in a positive way. So I'm very happy about that. And of course, you listener, watcher out there, thank you for your support for this channel. If you are new here today, then I would love it if you subscribed to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you will never miss another episode again. And I wish you an amazing rest of your day, all of you. And I look forward to inspiring you with another beautiful guest in next week's episode. Bye, everybody.